the results always are positive. And even if you are not expecting anything in return, just what you're going to get back is always, something amazing to learn and to keep you in track on the path.
Hello, yogis and friends. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Dharma Talk. I'm your host, Henry Winslow, and this is episode number 34 with none other than beloved yoga teacher around NYC, Yoshio Hama. It's funny, Yoshio, before we got on this call, when we were setting up and coordinating the interview, he was very concerned about being able to find his words in English. It's not his native language. But as you can see from the length of this episode, he had no trouble coming up with plenty of things to say. And it's all beautiful, and I think the key here is exactly the topic of this week's interview, purity of heart. That's the title of the episode, and it's also a very key message in what Yoshio is sharing on this podcast and out in the world in his yoga classes and elsewhere. We talk quite a bit about the idea of sharing from purity of heart and what that can create in your life. If it's true, if it's authentic, if it's genuine, that's when you get all of those positive results and amazing opportunities that he spoke on in that little clip at the beginning of the show. But that's not all we talk about. This is a wide-ranging conversation, and Yoshio shares of the yamas and niyamas which two to prioritize so that all others fall into place. He also talks about why it's impossible to make other people happy, but there's a subtle shift in intention you can make to reduce suffering of other people and yourself. We also talk about what happened when Yoshio stopped sampling different yoga lineages, which he was doing for many years, and dedicated himself fully to a singular practice and singular teacher. That was Sri Dharma Mittra. And finally, we talk about why Yoshio occasionally pretends to fall out of yoga poses and why it's so critical to add the words, "I don't know," to your vocabulary as a teacher. Yoshio is a very highly requested interview. I've been hearing from a lot of you that wanted to have me on the show, so I'm really excited for you guys to check this out. It was such a pleasure for me to talk to Yoshio, and I know you're going to love it. So stick around through these announcements, and we'll dive right into this interview with Yoshio Hama. Yogis, I've got some upcoming travel and workshop dates that I hope that you can join me for. If you live in New York, there's one installment left in my Backbending for Health and Joy workshop series at Yoga Fitness Herald Square. That's November 10th. Later in November, my wife Veronica and I are traveling down to Richmond, Virginia, my hometown, and I'll be teaching at the Yoga Dojo, and the two of us will both be teaching at Hot Yoga Richmond. Lastly, dates for California will be posting soon. I'm really excited about that too. So details for all of those events now and upcoming are on henrywins.com/events. Go there and sign up. At Lighthouse Yoga School in Brooklyn, New York, we are currently enrolling our next 200-hour teacher training for January 2019. So yoga teachers looking to level up your teaching, aspiring yoga teachers who want to do your first training, or yoga students who just want to take their practice a little bit deeper. You can get more information about that also at henrywins.com/events. And if you apply now using my referral code HenryWins, you'll save $100 on your tuition. There's no fee to apply, so go ahead, put your application in, drop the referral code, and lock in $100 off. What's your purpose? What's your vision? What mark will you leave on this planet long after you're gone? I'm Henry Winslow, and you're listening to Dharma Talk, the only podcast where I interview inspirational yogis on how they're changing the world in their own unique ways. Whether you're still searching for your purpose or already walking the path, I hope these stories get you excited to live your Dharma. Hello, Dharma Talk community, and welcome back to another episode. Today, I've got my friend Yoshio Hama for the interview. Yoshio started practicing yoga in Caracas, Venezuela in 1999. Between 1999 and 2008, he had the opportunity to study Vinyasa Yoga, Ashtanga Yoga, Partner Yoga, and Iyengar Yoga method under the guidance of different yoga instructors. In 2008, he came to New York and started his new life. He found his guru, Sri Dharma Mittra, and aligned himself to a new spiritual family. Now he spreads the teachings of Dharma and the light of yoga around NYC, guiding students to the path of righteousness. Yoshio, I'm so happy to have you on the show today. Been trying to work out a time to get you on here, and you are a very, very highly requested interview guest. So I know there are going to be a lot of listeners happy to hear you on the show. How are you tonight?
Good. Thank you, Henry. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to be here, in the program. I feel honored, and I really appreciate, you keep me in mind to participate in this program. Thank you so much.
Oh, the pleasure is all on this side of the microphone, Yoshio, honestly. Let's dive into the interview. I start every one of these conversations with the same question. And that question is this: what does the word Dharma mean to you, and what is your Dharma as you understand it today?
Well, like the word Dharma for me, it means that the essence of our own true nature. Some people interpret it like our duty, but as a human beings, I feel is how we serve others efficiently in a right way by doing the best we can without causing any harm. I think one of the good principles of ahimsa, like try to don't create discomfort or no harming others or cause others to harm too. So, and I think, my Dharma at this point of my life, it's a little blend in between, be a householder, be a father, a husband, and also, a yoga instructor. I love it. It's, something that I really enjoy too much. Just share, that beautiful path have been bringing me a lot of, skills to, continue in the path. To continue in this life. So,
And
yeah.
I noticed that you mentioned it's about the essence of your true nature. Do you find that it's easy or difficult to bring that out when you focus your efforts on a specific task, whether it be your role as a husband, father, and householder, or as a yoga instructor? How do you find that that challenge?
Yeah, definitely is really challenge. It's really easy when you're on the top of your mat on your own, with just following instructions from a teacher. It's really easy to find your own true nature when you have some, years practicing. But when you are in the daily practice, the real practice, like dealing with your kids, in the subway when it's a rush hour, or when maybe a student don't follow instructions, sometimes you face, that own true nature is a little bit difficult. It's a little bit steam. You cannot see it because the mind is really powerful. It's really louder. So you cannot really listen to your own true nature. You really have to concentrate and focus, same way you do it on your mat, and then breathe. Sometimes even close your eyes for a second and then, return back to your own true nature and move from there. You be kind to your student that is not following instructions. Be kind to your kids. Is not, follow, the task or whatever they need to do. Or even on the subway, someone push you instead of, scream or react in a violent way to, breathe and then, give them a chance to move. So I think it's really challenged. Even as a New Yorker, now that I haven't lived in 10 years, I found really challenged, but I think that's the constant practice and the real practice. Be on track with this, way of behave. That basically yamas and niyamas, right? We have to keep yamas and niyamas as our daily practice. You don't need to be on the top of a mat. You don't need to be in a specific place. And the daily, activities, we have to be in constant reflection and be an example of, the yamas and niyamas.
You mentioned ahimsa, non-harming, already. Is that one that you tend to put a lot of emphasis on in this practice? That's what it is, a practice to be true to this code of conduct in the yamas and niyamas. Is that one that you find to be particularly important or particularly top of mind in your day-to-day?
Yeah, I think, since I started, receive Dharma Mitra's teachings, he really emphasized, in ahimsa and isvana pranidhana. And I found really powerful this, from the yamas, ahimsa, and niyamas, isvana pranidhana. If you have both perfectly in a constant reflection and indeed try to, follow them, the rest follow apart. And I found like ahimsa, in the beginning, sometimes for people, even when they go to, Dharma's class, found really challenge, become vegan or even vegetarian. But I often say to the people that still working on, change their diet, they must do it, but gradually. But at least in the beginning, don't create discomfort in others. Whatever action we involve people, we have to make sure we don't create discomfort. And if we do so, we have to have the willpower and the determination to, apologize, to make sure that if we make a mistake, make up those mistakes. And gradually, because we moderate, the way we eat, so we will be able to control also what we say, and then try to, create more comfort in the people who are close to us.
That makes total sense. On the one hand, or the first point that you made is you can't dive into any drastic lifestyle change too quickly, because if you set the standard too high for yourself and you miss the mark, then it's very easy to throw your hands up in the air and give up on it entirely. But if you can gradually transition yourself into a change, you hit these little milestones along the way and recognize, oh, look what I was able to do with my commitment and my discipline, and that will propel you forward even more. So that, I think, is a great tip for anyone who's interested in transitioning into a vegetarian or vegan lifestyle, or make any other kind of change in your life. And then the second point that you made was, if you can recognize the discipline that you developed and harness that ability for other experiences, then you can start to control your impulses and the way you interact with other people and generate more happiness and cooperation. Is that right?
Yeah, at least I think at the beginning we can say like comfort. We please people, we make people feel comfortable. Sometimes we cannot really make people happy because, even that external happiness is not permanent. In reality, when we study in a deep level, the practice of yoga, we find the real happiness deep within us. So it's not depending from others. It comes from deep within. But at least for me, it sounds very like, in a way, like create more comfort. Like you make the people feel a little bit more like comfortable in a situation, so you can have a discussion and then, argue together, and then also put your standpoint on the top, and then the other person, and listen others too. So I think, then by you knowing people a little bit more, their tendencies, or, like for example, in a marriage, so you can start to, create a little more external happiness, with a good meal, with a good action, But I think on the beginning, at least, I would say just try to create comfort, even with an strange people that you first meeting, or even on the subway, someone that push you because they're in a rush. They even don't noticing they are harming you or create discomfort. So how you can create comfortable feelings for them? Okay, just step on the side and allow them to move faster as they want, and then you continue instead of block their way. So because it's really often we are really impulsive, right?
Right.
So I think that's at least what I feel about ahimsa. Just reflecting and think about how, as the householders, we can face it in the beginning of our journey. It's just create comfort,
Create
and then
comfort.
eventually we go in like all the yamas and the yamas. We go in a subtle level by create comfort. So then you start to think about in a subtle level, okay, maybe, I have to moderate the way I talk. Maybe in the beginning it's better don't talk because you cannot control your way of speaking. The way you speak is not really under control. So it's better to close your mouth. But then gradually you control, you moderate, you are more self-control. So the words that come out are a little bit more gentle. People feel more comfortable. Agreeable, you say in English?
I'm not sure.
I don't know. But and then, as I mentioned, go more into a meditation and then observe your tendencies and try to, make up and go in a subtle way. It's like reading the same passage of the Bhagavad Gita or the Dhammapada over and over and over, or do the same pose for years and years and years. You go in a subtle level. Maybe in the physical plane, the muscles, the joint, then in the mental plane, your thoughts, and then even on the spiritual plane. See?
Mm-hmm.
And same, I think, with the yamas and the yamas, it happened the same. And because the things on your life change, your sadhana change too, and we really start to go deeper on the practice of, ahimsa that we are talking about. But definitely, I think, ahimsa and nirvana pranidhana, I totally agree with Dharma Mittra. If you practice them in a really subtle level with serious commitment, you don't have to worry about the rest. You just don't create. Mm-hmm.
You spoke a little bit about how we can incorporate ahimsa into our day-to-day life. Maybe you give, the rushed person on the subway the benefit of the doubt and just let them go by and create that comfort feeling for them. What about Ishvara Pranidhana? First of all, can you give like a basic definition for those listeners who might not be as well-versed as you in the niyamas and yamas, what that means? And then how can we start to practice that?
Okay. Well, Isvara Pranidhana is do things as an offering without expecting anything in return, which is also really challenging in our society. We always, do a work, and then you many times think about, the payroll check or what you're gonna get in return. That's the tendency of the mind, the nature of the mind. See, you please someone, and then you're expecting that person feel happy or say something to you, or you teach an amazing class and you're expecting the student say something to you. But in reality, then when you just do things as an offering, you are not expecting anything in return. So become a real act or of love or a devoted action. This is an act of devotion. Like say you surrender to the Lord. I love this word of Dharma Mittra. Surrender to the Lord. You really realize that this is something that you do it because it has to be done. There is no thoughts in between. It's just you realize, like we was talking about our dharma. Okay, this is something, it should be done. No matter what, I will get it done. This is for the world peace. This is for universal love. This is to make the people understand or for stop suffering and pain in the world. So no matter what, I will do it, even if it causes a lot of discomfort or painful feelings in my own. I will do it just to seek that, feelings in others people. See?
Mm-hmm.
So even, sometimes you have to do austerities and unpleasant things to experience a lot of tapas, and then you have to expect anything in return from that, because the purity of heart. When you do things with purity of heart, the results are always positive. And I think, Isvana Pranidhana, somehow, when you renounce other fruits, you do things with purity of heart, you don't have to worry about anything else. You don't have to worry about money, somehow it comes to you in the right time. You don't have to worry about the right company, because the right person going to come to you in the right time. See? And sometimes, like it's complete perfectly, according to your karma, of course. But, I think these kind of things follow the rules of the yoga practice. Purity of heart, surrounded to the Lord, or do things as an act of offering, the results always are positive. And even if you are not expecting anything in return, just what you're going to get back is always, something amazing to learn and to keep you in track on the path.
And that's the trick, right? You can't be doing these things and expecting some kind of exchange, because when you do, that breaks the system. You only get what you give when it's coming from that purity of heart, just like you said.
Yeah, if you have always some feelings or thoughts, behind, then that's what you're going to receive sooner or later, because a lot of comments say that. And this is something also that is really important to always be in a constant reflection. Since I started with Dharma Mittra, I always, try to daily reflect about the loss of karma, because then it makes sense. Like you have to act, you have to move with purity of heart. Otherwise, what you obtain sooner or later, or what you get sooner or later, it will come to you, the same way you give it. So if you do it with purity of heart, what you receive will be the same. So, I think it's a really important practice, when we really establish in Isvana Pranidhana, definitely, things come really fluently, really smooth, and then allows you to stay in the path, in the spiritual path, in a way like with a righteous and commitment, with serious commitment.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, I can totally see how those two pieces, the ahimsa and the Ishvara Pranidhana, can lay the foundation for everything else to sort of click into place. It's a matter of priority. But Yoshio, I want to go back and hear a little bit more about your personal story. So I mentioned in your little intro that you had practiced a lot of different styles of yoga and gotten clearly very interested in the practice. But when you came to New York, you immediately fell into place underneath your teacher, Sri Dharma Mittra. So what happened there? Like, how did you, when you first came to the Dharma Yoga Center, how did you react to, or what was your response to meeting Dharma, and how did you know that this was the person that you wanted to align yourself with and study with?
Well, that was, something like I even maybe cannot describe, how amazing it was in words. Even because my English, I apologize in advance because my English is not really well. It's really basic, but I try to do my best. But
You're doing great.
as as I say, like, it was amazing because many things before, entering Dharma's studio, the old place in 23rd Street, 3rd Avenue, when we first arrived there, before that, we, received from our students, the poster, the 608 book of poses, Dharma, the Friends of All, the other book that a great uh, disciple of Dharma write about his story. And it was really interesting because we came here to New York with the idea to, study with all different teachers and masters. But somehow the first studio we get, it was Dharma Mittra studio. A lot of students bring us a lot of information from him. So we decided to touch his door first. And when we climb up the stairs, it was in the third floor in the old studio. As soon as I opened the door with my wife, it was like, wow, we both see each other and we say like, oh, it feels like home. Even if we having home here, we, departure from Venezuela, I say all my, like material things. I just came with a bag. I don't have home. I don't have anything. But it feels like we opened the door like it was home. And then, Duke was the man that received us. We was in touch with him by email, and he received us. Oh, you are Yoshio Hama, welcome. Without telling him anything. It was like he know us from before. It was really, an amazing and really strange sensation that I never experienced before. And from that time, then, we took Dharma's class, and it was an amazing feeling, like stay on his, under his instructions, under his guidance, and feel something beyond the physical and the mental plane. Like his instructions touch you, or at least touch us in a level of really subtle, like, way. And from that time, we decided like not even go to any other studio, like really focus on his teachings and master, Dharma Yoga's way. And then I really, I didn't practice anything else at least for 5 years. I touched other studios because I was working there. The people, when I finished my first teacher training, people started to call me. It was wonderful people around. I really thank them. If they're here in the program, I really, thanks all of them to help me. But, I didn't have that interest anymore to mastering all different styles. I really want to focus on Dharma's teaching and the way he shared the knowledge of self-realization beyond the poses, beyond even the pranayamas. It was how he introduced you into the path of self-realization.
Mm. So how did your practice change as a result of that single pointed focus? Because before that, you had been, testing the waters in a lot of different lineages and styles. What happened when you decided, okay, we're going to just stay here and really do this yoga under this teacher and listen to what he says and try to put all of that into practice?
Yeah, it was like a totally devotion, like Israna Pranayana surrounded to the Lord. It was like a, kind of feeling, somehow to sense like he can manifest, he's a manifestation or a portion of manifestation of God, because his purity, it was so like easy to feel it. His way to share things, it was so pure. So I was totally surrounded to his teachings. I didn't, myself, I was really trying to do things the way he instructed, physically, the way he instructed mentally, how to think, and even spiritually, the assignments he always put you to reflect on his daily, and also study, all his postures. I was really try and keep the determination to mastering, Dharma Yoga. And it was really kind of interesting result, because somehow I end up, being serving him, have, the lucky or somehow karmatically deserve to be next to him, travel sometimes with him, and then stay really close to him. And it's really interesting because somehow his lineage is not like talking too much. We don't talk too much, but just spend time next to him silently and be, open and receptive. This is very important when he said be receptive. Your receptivity through his teachings allows you to receive what you need.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I
There is
love
no
that. I love that mantra of his. He often ends the class with that little line, just be receptive, or be receptive to the grace of God. It's
right, yeah.
such an important reminder for all of us. And I also agree with you 100% about being able to feel his energy when you're around. I mean, just the other day, we were in class together over there at the Dharma Yoga Center, and I came in a little bit late. I missed the sun salutation, and I put my mat down on the outskirts of the room, and he just walked over and he, signaled for me to step off my mat, and then he pulled it over next to him in front of the projection board. And so I got to be, right next to him for the whole class. And it's a special feeling. And it's not just like, oh, I was chosen. It doesn't really matter like if people are looking at me or if I'm visible or not, but I could feel him and his joy and just the lightness, the levity that he brings to every single one of his classes. And it transmits over to you. You can feel it in your practice 100%.
Yeah, it's very special, being his presence and, and his enthusiasm. He's almost 80 years. Next year he turned to it. So I think it's a great example to follow. For me, it was also a realization by the time I spent like my first monthly, like package, how you say, like a membership. I don't
Yeah.
know how to say things. And then, it was a realization, wow, this is, something that I want to like follow. He has kids, he has a granddaughter, he runs, the studio for many, many years, almost, since, his departure from the ashram. He has really determined to spread, the teachings from his guru to the people here in New York. So it's such an amazing, example. And then still after 50 years, sharing, feel his enthusiasm, his, like sense of humor, like his playful way, and even now that the classes, sometimes are more difficult, sometimes more simple, but always is there the sense of humor, the enthusiasm, and the, that positive, hungry determination. You have to do it because it's, it has to be done. So, I think this is something amazing, to just watch by itself. Mm-hmm. Even if you are practicing or watching, sometimes I don't practice during the trainings. I have to assist him. And it's amazing just to watch from outside, it's wow, it's something really admirable, that hopefully we as a yoga teachers can get into 80 years old and be, in a big city, sharing, these kind of things with people. Because this is the right place that people need a lot of yoga.
Yes.
Sometimes in the mountain when everything is quiet and nice, people are really polite, probably the yoga are already on the earth. But here in New York, sometimes it's hard to find it.
Right.
So
right.
It's really a grateful, or a bless to have someone that still has through all these years the same enthusiasm and the same will to keep moving people into self-realization and to the path of yoga.
Yeah,
so
and also to inspire other people to carry the torch like yourself. You're totally dedicated to this man and his teaching, and he couldn't do it alone. It's through inspiring other people to teach as well that really he has the most impact. So that kind of brings me to my next question, which is this: Yoshio, have you ever, in your time since working with Dharma and being around him and assisting him, what's like the biggest struggle that you've come up against? Has it ever been a challenge to, well, I'll just leave it at that. What struggles have you come up against?
But you mean struggles like working with him or in my life?
Either. I mean, I think it's hard to separate these things, especially considering how big a piece of your life he really is.
Yeah, it's funny because, I think one of the biggest struggling, but the most beautiful things that happen in my life is become a householder, get married and then have a kid and, struggling with the regular people, like, you have a little argue with your spouse, a little argue with your kids, and then sometimes your ego taking place and you want that, them do something that you want, but at the end, you are not really place yourself in them. And, finally, when you go to your practice and reflect, try to, understand them, then you understand a little bit more compassion, and then you apologize and make up. And I think, it still is a lot of struggling because, every single change of your kids and your marriage is a new step and a new challenge. But somehow it's a commitment. When you become a parent, you cannot release your commitment. You commit
No,
for your entire life.
that's a commitment for
And
life.
somehow yes, and somehow I feel the same with the marriage. Like, I cannot break it. Some people may think, oh, may get divorced and that's it. But, it's somehow I face it a little bit differently. And I think it's a lifetime commitment. You have up and downs. You have to, deal with that and, try to make it, gradually more comfortable, or at least, become more friendly, and then, try to solve the problem with your intelligence, with the knowledge of yoga. I think it's a bless somehow for us, even if we struggle a lot as householders, but just have the tool or the knowledge of yoga and the practice, daily practice, allow us to solve the problem with another, skills and with some other results that regular people for sure struggle a lot at home. You know, maybe in the beginning of the marriage is like a honeymoon for 2 3 years, but then the real marriage starts. When you struggle with a lot of stuff, and then you have to be a friend, you have to really practice compassion. So,
Yeah.
but for us, it's a bless because we have, the chance to sit and reflect and face our own tendencies, face the other's tendencies as an individuals, entities, and then place ourselves in them, and then gradually keep practicing ahimsa and create comfort. You are not thinking about your feelings or create more comfort on your own desires or your own needs. You try to create more comfort on them, their needs. See? And I
Yeah.
think this is still a big challenge that we have to deal daily, 24/7, when you're exposed with your kids, and even as a teacher too. Because sometimes as a teacher, you become a confidant for your students.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They, talk to you, they say to you things that probably no one else knows. And then sometimes you have to just be a good ears and don't say anything because you don't have the answer. But at least you listen to them.
And
And
they may
same
not
happens.
even be looking for an answer. They just want a place to be able to speak, a place of non-judgment, and
Right.
and you can create that space and just be that ear.
Yes. And I think this is another part, when we become a teacher, so the people start to, feel like, oh, this is the guy I want to follow. We have to watch out because a lot of people try to ask you a lot of stuff, and then we try to always keep, or pretend we have an answer. And sometimes it's really important, to stay quiet or say, I don't know, or send them to someone that has a little more experience because we can influence them not in a good direction
Mm-hmm.
because not necessarily our tendencies are the same as them. Sometimes it may work because you realize, oh, this student have the same tendencies like me. I can easily see when I was there, or I can see it's a reflection. But sometimes you recognize there are different. So that's a moment, like we really have to listen and then probably, like stay quiet or say, I don't know, or send, most of the time I send my students when they ask something that I am not able, go to them.
Right.
Go to him.
Go to Dharma.
Because I say to them, even if you don't talk to him, you will get the answers by taking his class.
Mm-hmm.
He psychically put you in the right place.
Yeah.
Because he's an enlightened being, he's a manifestation of the divine by itself. At least I see it this way. And many times the people say, oh, thank you. It was amazing. You cannot imagine. And I say, I feel always really happy. Sometimes I see the room full of my students. Before going to them, they was my students, private students, like collective class students. And I'm really happy because now they following someone that can guide them in a better way. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, it sounds like I feel by going back to the question, it's always, all our practices, creates a level of struggling that we have to always be like the witness and watch out when we have to be more silent, when we have to cooperate and follow instructions, or when we have to keep a line and then say something.
Right. And if you're not struggling, then what are you practicing? Right?
Yeah. In a human form, I think this is always a way that it's going to be. Somehow, our, karma, our dharma function in a way that tests us, in a way to see if we are really in the path, if we are staying in the constant practice, in a constant observation to continue, because it's really easy sometimes to go away from the path because we are not listening, our own true nature, we listen our ego, we listen our own tendencies, the tendency of the mind and the body, and not paying attention to, the real self. And this is only coming by, constant practice, holding the poses longer for those that are more physically, or maybe do a long retention of breath, or a long sitting meditation, or for those are more devoted, chanting to the Lord for hours, or those are more like, in a way of action and karma yoga to serve others, even if they are lawyers and nurses, keep in a constant service. I think this allows us to, become more humble, to listen more, and then to be more like efficiently helpers, or, a vehicle to manifest the divine, to help others to stay on the track.
Mm-hmm.
And somehow,
Yoshio,
I think... Mm-hmm.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, no, so I was saying like somehow, all these manifestations or tendencies or different type of practice bring us into the same point. Right. I love one of Dharma's phrases. He say, different roads, same destination.
And all these practices are leading you to that point. Do you mean that everyone has the same point, or no matter which road you take, your point, your individual point is the same?
Yes. In fact, like, self-realization. You can, be a football player. You can be, a nurse, a doctor, a yoga teacher, a householder, a man, that if you really, realize what's your dharma indeed, what's, the next step, and being a constant observation to keep moving forward, you can become self-realized and is no matter what role you take, same if you do Bhakti Yoga, Karma Yoga, Hatha Yoga, it's always the same, you take different roads, but you get to the same destination. Of course, with a constant practice, with a constant practice and determination. Otherwise, it may take, long time, or like many lifetimes.
Many lifetimes.
but I think, it's beautiful because somehow, like, I agree with Dharma, like he say, when you start yoga in a human form, you have been living for many lifetimes. And somehow
it took a lot of work to get here as far as you are.
Yes. So somehow you carry the knowledge subconsciously or unconsciously, and you start to waking up. As much you do a hard practice, even if you like more asanas, you do really hard practice, poof, and there is a moment you can't become in a realization of it, your nature. Same if you're chanting really, devoted for hours and hours and hours, or you do your japa, or you do a lot of selfless work. Somehow, poof, you reach the point. So I think it's an amazing, opportunity, for all of us that we are involved with this beautiful practice to, keep sharing and, allow this inner divinity to manifest through constant practice. That's why I think tapas is really important. Harder work, create inner fire, hungry determination. That's why we practice a lot of austerities, fasting, hard poses.
Well, I do know because I've taken your class and it's very challenging. So, Yoshio, I know that it's not just the students that you're putting in that position to practice that, because it comes from your practice too. You've been working hard. You've had the dedicated discipline for many years. So I'm interested to hear, maybe one more story about a signal that you've gotten that your work is not in vain. Like what is something that you've been able to achieve or contribute as a teacher or as a householder that's made you feel like you are on the right path?
That's a difficult one.
Because you're so modest.
I don't know, well, I don't know. I think maybe the good thing that comes to my mind is because you see the students come back to you.
Yeah.
Because I have been married for 14 years. You keep, that commitment. You do your best, so no matter what. I think somehow, this, like sometimes, I always think in the morning when I practice hard, like I think about my students. I want to practice so hard whatever I'm doing, or at least concentrate really sharp. And I think about them. Like I want them to reach into the same place. And I'm not afraid they become better than me, because I want to share with purity of heart the best that I have to them. And by the time they are ready to go to someone else that is better than me, I allow them to go. I don't have any attachment. I don't want to create any attachment from them towards me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think this is something like probably I would say is one of the most beautiful things that I may contribute as a yoga instruction, that I will not try to create attachment to the teacher. I will try to create, like respect and then trust on the teacher, and then inspire them to realize that this is the right thing to do, to stay in yamas and niyamas, do your poses, do your breathing, eat the right food, become vegan gradually. So you start to become in a subtle way more pure in your body, in your mind, and then you can really recognize the divinity in everyone and inside of you. but I'm still in the same path. I cannot say like I'm a realized human being. I still make a lot of mistakes as a parent, as a husband, as a teacher. But at least, we have that beautiful enthusiasm to make up, to apologize, and to allow, people next to you to continue with you.
Mhm. I think what you said is a really beautiful sentiment about what we should be striving for, those of us who are teachers, in our relationship to the students. It's not about creating an authority dynamic where you are always the one who holds the keys and information to pass on, but rather you're just sharing what you know and giving the best of what you have so that that person can go on and surpass you. Let them take off, go in another direction, go the same direction, go further, but be there for unconditional support with no expectation of a return and no expectation of continuing to be the master.
Yeah, so I think is that's a big, you know, uh, like quality I like about Dharma. Talking about him again, is his humbleness, how he shares things with purity of heart, and how he really push you to the limit, and somehow many times we can get even better than him. Sometimes even if you can do things better, I probably will not do it better than him in his class. Just to respect him. Sometimes he jokes, never do it better than the teacher.
I know.
Always don't. Always don't return again. So it's like a joke. I think it's more the feeling of move in the collective conscious. You have
Right.
amazing skills, but you don't have to show off. And that's
Right.
what I feel sometimes about, like, when I want to do crazy stuff, most of the time I do it on my own practice at home.
Yeah.
Or maybe if it's extremely necessary in a teaching workshop or a class when I have people losing track. So I have to show a little bit of the powers. So to put them in track and to put them interested again on the practice.
Yeah.
But most of the time, like he say, the the profound message that he says, like, just be in the collective conscious. Like when he come out of the studio, he dressed like the typical guy, a little pants, a t-shirt. He's not trying to show the entire world he's a guru. He even sometimes don't wear his mala bead, anything related with yoga, So you see him, you don't know him, and it's a common guy,
Yeah.
So
Just riding around on a Segway.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it's the same. Like when we move in a collective class, instead of show off, like you have the amazing skills, even as a teacher or as a student, just move with the collective. Sometimes you have a lot of advanced students next to you, so you move with that collective conscious. Sometimes you have more beginners, support them, show them a nice pose to stay comfortable. So instead of make them feel a little bit embarrassed, or like they feel a little bit less because
Or
they cannot
intimidated.
approach.
Yeah.
Intimidated. And even as a yoga teacher too, sometimes I love to pretend I do mistakes during the class. Yeah, because the students feel like it's more approachable when you do things really perfectly. They feel like like they're a little bit intimidated. When you do things a little crooked and then you fall on purpose, they say, okay, the teacher is crooked, the teacher is falling. I want to try.
Yeah, I can do that.
See?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's more approachable. Sometimes there are exceptions. You have people that have more professional, like a master class, so you have to do things more clean, more neat, because they need to see, okay, the mastery of the transition of the pose is this. Now I want to challenge you because all of them are really professional. See, so I want to keep them something, interesting. But most of the time, on a regular basis, we have a lot of beginners. So it is important for them to feel comfortable too. And then we come back, somehow to the ahimsa, create
Exactly.
comfort.
Creating
And
comfort.
then also in Svana Pranidhana, I'm doing just because it had to be done, making mistakes. Because, I'm not expecting anything in return if the people are going to tell, oh, that teacher is really mad, he's falling. No, the people know if you are good or not. Even if you fall, you pretend you're not, they will recognize if you're teaching from your heart. And that's what I think. It's not about if you do a perfect pose or you talk really wisely about this or that. It's if you're sharing, even with 3 words, with purity of heart, the people will feel, that you are a nice person and you're sharing good teachings.
Well, I love that you just brought it back completely full circle to the first few things that we talked about, the priorities here in this day-to-day householder's life. Ahimsa, Isvara Pranidhana, come from no harm, bring comfort, and do the act of service because it has to be done. So Yoshio, I think now is the perfect time to move on to the final section of the interview. Each one of these conversations ends the same way. It's called the Prana Round. So in this Prana Round, I'm going to ask you 6 rapid fire questions and ask you to answer in minimum 1 word. You can answer in just 1 word if you want, or maximum 1 sentence. Okay, does that make sense?
Okay.
Okay, let's do it. Okay.
Hopefully I have the word.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, first question. In 1 word, why do you practice yoga?
In 1 word. Oh my God. I would say purity.
Purity. I love that. That's a great word. Okay, next question. What's your favorite yoga pose and why?
My favorite yoga pose is, many people will laugh, but it's handstand. Why? Because on the beginning of my journey of asana practice, it was one of the poses I felt it was like I couldn't reach. I felt like it was impossible for me to achieve the pose. And somehow, when I started to get it, it put me in the right place to focus. I was really distracted. I was like sometimes in a bad mood, with things. I couldn't understand many things in life. I didn't even have the right knowledge. And somehow, even before Med Dharma, handstand teach me a lot of patience, humility, and then give me a self-control. So
That's what it's
somehow
all about.
I started to remove my fears, my insecurities through handstand. And that's why I always love my students to do handstand at least 10 times each class.
10 times the class. You heard it here. Okay, next question. Yoshio, what is the single best cue or piece of advice? So it can be a general piece of advice you've ever received from a teacher.
Well, I like once, I was really good with my diet. Like, I think that was the first time I went to London with Dharma. And I was really, committed with veganism, almost raw, no sugar, no wheat, like pasta, bread. It was really like orthodox. And then Dharma noticing, and then he invited me for dinner, and then he ordered the food, and he ordered falafel with garlic, hummus, tahini, all kind of tabules, and salad with onions. I didn't eat onion at that time, and garlic. And then he asked me to eat all this food. And then at the end, it was disgusting for me because I didn't like it. And then at the end, he say, "Don't be attached even to your food."
Mm. Don't be attached even to your food.
So, like, I think attachment somehow in our practice is one of the things that put us always down.
Mm-hmm.
So somehow you achieve some level of higher point, and then you're always afraid to fall or to show others that like cannot go back. But somehow it's just the physical body, it's just your mind. It's not the real you. So I think attachments is something like the clashes, we have to watch out. So I think that advice, it really, helped me a lot to really higher understand. Don't be attached even to your food. Don't be attached even to your teacher. Don't be attached even to your, achievements. Just, be in the practice. And if you have to change things, because indeed you have to, just do it. Then you know the rules to follow to return back to that point.
Right.
And I think as a householder, I have been learning a lot that sometimes with my kid, I have to go to places because the birthday is in a pizza place. I don't eat pizza, I don't eat cheese, I don't eat bread, but I have to go there. Sometimes the people eat meat, sometimes the people drink beers. I don't do any of this kind of stuff, but I can sit in a table, smelling all of this, and then even have conversation with people, not about yoga, about regular things. So don't like try to influence them into the way that I'm doing. Just share with them, and
just create
to
comfort.
Keep creating comfort and also feel comfortable with too.
Yeah, create comfort for yourself too.
Yeah. So I think that advice that Dharma gave me, a couple of years ago, like it really certifies something that have been helping me a lot as a householder, husband, as a teacher, as a parent, to really, like don't worry about too much things.
Yeah.
Just do indeed what I have to do in that moment, and don't try to show others if I'm in a high place or lower place. Just be, the way that I have to be for that moment. And I think it's a kind of way a nice compassion practice, because you try to be in the same level of, the people are around you, or you stay in track in the same symphony with the situation is around you. If the situation allow you to dance, so you dance. If the situation allow you to sing, you sing. If the situation allow you to cry, you cry, or you stay silent and listen. See, so I don't know. Think, don't be attached to your teacher. So try to gradually, remove attachments and do things again, as an act of offering, create comfort. Yeah, I don't know. In few words, just remove attachments, but do indeed what you have to do.
Do what you have to do. Yeah, we've totally thrown out the rules of the Prana Round, but I like to hear that story. So thanks for sharing. Okay, we'll keep going. Next question is: recommend one book. It can be either modern or ancient for our listeners.
Well, one of my favorite books is Dhammapada. Is the teachings of Buddha. Is my favorite book. And I have it in audiobook because I'm not a good reader, English reader. So I like to hear it over and over. So you really, instead of listen, music, I always, when I listen something, I put the recording and remembering Buddha's teachings, but always reflect and try to transfer those Asian teachings as a mother householder. And I think that's a good job, because we are all in a different situation, different societies, different ages, see, different karma. So we have to adjust those Asian teachings to our condition, update those teachings. So it requires a little contemplation, listening over and over, or read it over and over, and then make it work for you. But yeah, this is one of my favorite books, Dhammapada.
Dhammapada. And I also love audiobooks. And even though I'm a native English speaker, I like audio too.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
It's wonderful. Yeah. Okay, next question. Is yoga for everyone?
Yeah, in general, the word yoga, involves, I would say like the entire creation. So somehow, even if you are not involved with poses, with breathing, chanting, someone that, going back to our first talking, someone is compassionate, that do things without expecting anything in return, it's definitely, practicing yoga.
Yeah.
And somehow, I
the broader
think
the
in the high point of...
The broader the definition, the more inclusive it becomes, of course. Yeah.
Yeah. And somehow it's like, when I moved to this country, in my country, there are different laws. But as I move here, I assume and I have to follow the rules. So somehow, like as a human beings, to improve our condition, we have to follow some rules. And that kind of rules, like yamas and niyamas, or the commandments, or whatever you want to say, in different religions and in cultures, like is a basic practice that involves yoga. And, like I was mentioned before, you can do it 24/7, even when you dream. Somehow, like when you start to be more conscious about your dreams, state of dreams, you start to control more your desires, and then you're still practicing yoga. You become more self-controlled, stop wandering. So I think yoga definitely, if you practice in yamas and niyamas, you're practicing yoga. So every single person in this planet can practice yoga if you do yamas and niyamas.
Last question. How can our audience get in touch with you, Yoshio, and how can we support you in your Dharma?
Well, practice, chant a lot, to the Supreme Self, so we stay in connection, and then if you want to come to, the classes, I would love to have you. But, we stay in connection. If you do your self-practice, if you come to class, if we chant together daily, so, we support each other. I think I would say like we need more support each other, because we learn more, sharing each other. So I love, to interact with people, but I know it's a busy city. So definitely we support each other by doing our practice, no matter where is the practice. If you're doing your yamas and niyamas on the subway, if you're doing your asana practice on the top of a mat, if you're chanting in the shower, if you're like talk kindly with your spouse and your kids, we are connected and we support each other.
Well, Yoshio, I support you, and I really appreciate you supporting me in my yoga practice and through sharing your Dharma on the Dharma Talk podcast with me today. So thank you so much, and I look forward to seeing you soon.
Thank you so much, Henry. It was my pleasure. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to, be in this amazing program. Thanks for the people who are listening, and definitely, I'm underserved, whatever, we're always connected psychically and of course physically and mentally too. So thank you so much again, and have a beautiful night, and we'll be always in touch.
If you got something out of this episode, if you like Dharma Talk and want to keep it going, please do me a huge favor and subscribe, rate, and review on iTunes. I know it's not the most convenient thing to do, but it makes all the difference in getting this show out there and more visible to other people who can benefit from it. And hey, if you've got feedback or ideas or you want to get in touch with me, you can do that on Instagram @HenryWins. Otherwise, I'll talk to you next week. And until then, keep living your Dharma.